Hello, welcome to the next part of Enabler Day, and this is the fun part actually, at least for me, which is startup stories. So we are going to talk to three founders in this one by one interview style, and right now I'm beginning with the first one, that is Aruna Schwartz, CEO of Stellar Technologies. It's a software company that offers information management solutions. Its products are for solutions used in database, content management, and business intelligence. It has been funded by angel investors in Europe, Israel, and India. And I guess by this time, many more. And welcome, Aruna.
Delighted to be here.
So, Aruna, your business model has a lot of international cooperations and collaborations, but I think it would be more clear if you could explain first what your entire business model is and how did it eventually lead to so many international cooperations that you have?
Thank you. Just a little point on the software. It has all the applications that Diksha mentioned, but we are focused on one problem statement in that whole information management value chain, which is creating digital data out of engineering documents. And our target sectors are any engineering company. Where we have the most customers is aerospace, defense, avionics, shipping, rail transport, and these are the four five major sectors that we work in. And by nature, these are all global players. They're companies you're talking about, let's say Airbus, you're talking Honeywell, et cetera, et cetera. So the market by definition is global. And so we focused from day one. I mean, we are a software company, and any enterprise software company has only one way to sell, in my opinion, and this is the business model that we're working on, is through channel partners. And these channel partners are solutions companies, complementary technology products. And again, by definition, they have to be global, addressing the markets and the sectors that I'm talking about, right? And Europe is a big sector, being an engineering, an old established traditional engineering powerhouse. So from our very first customer, which is Rolls-Royce in the UK, we've always sold to channel partners. And I guess luck also has a big part to play in it, because the solutions partner for Rolls-Royce, Lionbridge, approached us. It was an inbound call asking if our technology could work for this particular problem statement, creating digital data out of engineering manuals. So, Rolls-Royce UK being the first, the second one was the Naval Group, and so on and so forth. It's not an easy game to play, because working with channel partners, and these are all again established global players, you need to be known. And if you're not known, you have to be addressing a very, very specific problem that the big software players like IBM, SAP, PTC, etc. don't address. So, that's a little bit of how we started, and we've stuck faithfully to that strategy.
Yeah. Okay. So it's interesting that you went global from the very beginning, because that was one question that I think one of the startups asked yesterday, that should they do it from the beginning, or is it something that should come at a later stage? And I think the answer was that if you're a software company or a SaaS, that like it happens from the very beginning. So that's a good example for people who attended yesterday's panel and had this question. So, Aruna, what are the kind of mindset changes, or rather challenges, that founders would have or could have when they are acquiring global customers, and when they are interacting with people outside India, for say, I would focus on India in this case, but generally, what's really the difference when you talk to global customers or acquire global customers? Do you have to change your strategy there?
Um, the engineering sector that I told you that we work in has been around a long time. It's a very traditional sector, but it's also an extremely pragmatic, results-oriented sector. So whether it's a Rolls-Royce factory in Germany or in India or anywhere else in the world, the kind of decision makers, the kind of users, the kind of influencers, I find they all have the same mindset, which is results. So you can't go in there and waffle about AI and NLP and all about innovation and all that. You have to demonstrate. I mean, nobody's asked me if you're AI. We're not, by the way, we are an expert system. But it's all about showing that you're doing something that you're making something faster, you're improving productivity, something that their current processes cannot do. So you have to go in with a very maybe it's a good thing that I'm not a technologist by background. My background is business development, so I know speaking to customers, and so no waffling around about innovations and stuff, but very pragmatic, results oriented approach. And again, my background, I lived and worked in France and the UK and Europe for about 20 years, so I know I know that market. I mean, maybe not the engineering sector, so it wasn't very difficult. But one of the question that you said your founders asked, should you go global from day one? I don't think there is any other choice. You have to, you're building products for certain vertical sectors, and there are no boundaries there, no geographical boundaries. So you have to go straight to where the action is. And just on a point, the other, as I said, we always sell through channel partners. The other route that we focused on is being in the corporate innovation labs of some of these large companies, starting with Airbus BizLab in 2017, followed by Shell. And in last year, January, we won the Deutsche Bahn Future of Maintenance Challenge, and we were part of DB Mindbox for about 3 months. So that is also a good route to have your technology validated, also build up your network of contacts to sell into these global companies. Global engineer, I'm talking as I said, my target is established engineering and manufacturing companies. So that's a good way to.
Yeah. And since so many of your customers are across the globe, and I mean, I don't know how your interactions usually go with them. Do you travel a lot? Is it all remote? But how has really the pandemic, hit your, say, client relationships? And that's the first part of the question. And the second is that has your internationalization strategy changed during this time?
A lot of our, we are a bootstrap company, so a lot of our marketing budget or a very limited marketing budget, we focused on getting speaker slots at international conferences. So I've been a speaker at the aerospace conferences in the UK, in the US and in Europe. And so the first time around when I went, nobody knew who we are because there are no small companies, and especially from India, invited as speakers. But I did 3 years in a round. So it's kind of an old, dare I say, an old boys network now. So, a lot of them know us. So, which really helped when we couldn't travel. I think the last time I went out of India was to be in Berlin with Deutsche Bahn last Feb. Every single lead that came in has been people that I've already met, and every deal that we've signed has somebody that I've already looked into the eye. So there is no way, if we hadn't built up that repository of contacts and people that I'd met through the time, that we would have managed to do this. So the pandemic has been, we were meant to be in Berlin for 3 months from April to June, implementing a Deutsche Bahn. Finally, that went remote. Unfortunately, I would have loved to live in Berlin for 3 months, but so all that investment we put in conferences and traveling and everything really paid off during the pandemic. And plus, the other big driver was all manufacturing companies, engineering companies that had been talking about, digital transformation, etc., sort of leapfrogged into it because of especially on the maintenance shop floors where there were less people didn't want to touch paper, they wanted interactive devices, etc. So that also helped a big way. And as I said, we work through partners. So one of the biggest partners that I signed, again, is a German company, Umlaut, who have an office in India, who were introduced to us by Airbus BizLab about 3 years ago. So, we signed that partnership in January this year, and they'll be taking us to market even for a Deutsche Bahn, because, our company, our size, we're a small four-person team, by the way, could never work directly. We need the SI partners. So, if anybody tells me they've signed the customer blind, the corporate customer, without ever seeing them, I really would find that difficult to believe.
So I'm glad you mentioned the example of Deutsche Bahn because most of our audience today is Indian founders and German founders. And I think Indian founders have this question that if they want to enter Germany and have
Mhm.
big clients like these, or this kind of customer base, how should they really go about it? I mean, first you mentioned, yes, definitely partners and etc. But if you could focus a bit on the relevance of ecosystem and platforms and these kind of places where founders could go to establish these relationships, that would be very helpful.
I think for a new product with not many customers, the corporate innovation labs are an amazing place to be. I mentioned being selected and winning the Deutsche Bahn challenge. They found us on the Airbus Biz Lab website for their future. We were the only Indian company even invited for the challenge, and of course, the only one that won a particular challenge. So the corporate innovation labs in India of the big companies, so I'm talking about Airbus. I think MBRDA, Mercedes-Benz has a research development center, are an excellent place for new technologies to be kind of get the PR it deserves. Because see, if you're picked by an Airbus or a Deutsche Bahn, means you're doing something good, and all the PR that you can generate from them will definitely help. Getting a customer signed out of it is a longer haul, but at least you have that the initial stage where you get noticed. So I would highly recommend applying into the corporate, the big innovation labs in India, so that you get that global visibility on their website. So Deutsche Bahn found us when they were doing due diligence, but again, we address a very specific problem, and theirs was, how do you train OEM documentation? So the OEMs are Siemens, Stadler, and all of them into a unified format. And we sort of, when they scouted around, they found us. So if we were an Airbus company, I guess, that gave us that credibility. So the first stage is that ecosystem is the getting noticed and getting selected into one of these innovation labs.
Hmm.
Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult even to approach them.
Okay. And do you still continue to be involved in such programs, or is there a stage when maybe startups
Um,
don't need it anymore?
sort of done now on the corporate innovation programs, and my strategy this year is really scaling up with more partners.
Hmm.
So as I mentioned, Umlaut, another partner that we signed, in the pandemic year, is a big engineering solutions company in India called Scient, who have offices around the globe, including in Germany, and who provide digital solutions to all the sectors that I mentioned: aerospace, defense, avionics, etc., etc. Shell is also, with Shell, we have that visibility into the energy sector as well. So I think we're kind of done, unless, something else comes up. But now the real focus is getting more partners, in Europe,
Okay.
and scaling up, selling more and more of our licenses into these big companies. And just a thing, however, close you might be to the corporate, many of the European engineering companies have their own established solutions partners, which are sitting 2 kilometers from their doorstep. They may not be the Accentures and everything, but a small system integrator who's sitting 2 kilometers, maybe from an Airbus store or from a Volvo store, etc. And these are companies that they've used for a very long time. So you need to be in there so that you can sell it to the corporates.
Okay. And as a concluding question, just following up on what you said, for your next phase of growth, I mean, you have a platform right here that is Ginseb. What kind of partners are you I mean, first part is like, what kind of partners are you looking for right now in Europe who could collaborate with you? And second is, how is it that other co-founders or startup founders in our network could support you?
As I said, we're always looking for more partners, so more regional. I saw a little video on Bavaria. I mean, I think Germany has the highest number of system integrators, followed by France. In Germany equals about 150 of them. So contacts into these small regional vendors who work in aerospace, defense, rail, automotive. I mean, that's majority of them. So more of these partners to bring us into more of these customers. And from the startup ecosystem, we're always looking for complementary technology vendors who can be partners with us, because we only do one part of an entire maintenance workflow. So other companies that do predictive maintenance, digital maintenance, content management, interactive publishing, all are natural partners. And one of the things, again, the power of networks, as I said, Rolls-Royce was our very first customer for our software. And to mid-August, we just signed a huge partnership with them, where on their digital marketplace, Yokowa, Rolls-Royce is now a reseller of their software, of our software, to their end users. So, we couldn't get better validation than that. So yes,
Yeah.
the power of networks, the power of customer references is huge in the corporate sector. So even if your technology, you will always be remembered by the service that you've provided with your
Mhm.
software. So, be, and as a small company, as a startup, you have to be 10 times better than the established vendors. There will be bugs, there will be problems, but if you can resolve it and find a practical solution, you'll be known, you'll be remembered for that, and will be referred to other customers by the corporates or the partners.
Thank you, Aruna, and what a wonderful note to end on, the power of networks, and that's the very reason we all are here together, and a great success story as well. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you, Diksha.
Yay, thanks. And with this, now we go to our next speaker, that is Frauke Kempken, Head of Sales at Entrafin. Entrafin, founded in 2015, is a startup based in Cologne, and they work with German SMEs. Yes, a very difficult segment to track for to crack for a lot of startup founders that I talk to. So we would love to hear from you, Frauke, that what is Entrophene all about, and how do you work with SMEs here?
Yeah, thanks, Diksha, for having us. And yeah, to take up your question, we work with SMEs in the finance sector. Here in Germany, we do offer them a purchase finance. So especially for startup and working SMEs producing and manufacturing, working capital is always tough and always rare. So we provide them with a digital flexible platform so they can finance the purchase with us, and we will expand to India. So we will support Indian SMEs in the near future as well. And we started, as you said, 2015. We provide our first customers in 16 with working capital. And yeah, as Aruna just said, network is really one of the main goals, because when you start, you need the first referrals, and we cooperate with a couple of intermediaries and financial portals that they help to get like the first step into it and get the first customers, and then you just see it rolling.
So, what makes you interested in India, and what is it exactly that you're looking to collaborate with India on?
Yeah, so because we do it now for a couple of years here in Germany, and the SME sector is trading internationally more and more. So we started just German, different from the speaker in front, and then increased it from Germany to purchasing in all over the world. And we recognized how high the hurdles are sometimes to get the right finance. And India, especially the Indian SMEs, are such a high and increasing market. They grow so fast. And for example, around about 45% out of the SMEs export were made by the SMEs in India. So they are huge amount of volume for us to serve, and they have special problems in getting the right finance because there's a financing gap at the moment and the interests are quite high. So we would like to help them as well to export more and to grow as well.
So have you already started the outreach for the Indian market, or is it in process?
It is in process, and we are super happy that we could be part of the German Accelerator program. Just made a talk before about it, and yeah, so we made the first connection, got a quite good look on the market experience, especially in times like this with the pandemic, that you are not allowed to travel and it's harder to get like the first impression when you can't be in India. So we plan to start latest December, January.
So you are at the right place then, because this can be your call to all SMEs that are attending your panel right now.
Definitely.
That if you want to collaborate and are looking at financing, you should definitely talk to Frauke. And you have also been a part of an accelerator program, German accelerator, and you know a lot of startups also apply for this and want to be a part of this. So first of all, like, what are your tips to get into the program? And secondly, how does it really help? How has it helped you to be a part of this program in your growth?
I just can highly recommend it. Just talk to the people if you're based in Germany, for example, for the German Accelerator. They have scouts. They answer all your questions you have. And so it's a good opportunity because you get a really good market impression. You have people on the ground in the market you want to expand, and you get good mentors on your side. They are super helpful. They make the first introduction to the people you need, to the questions, especially if you need legal advice or regulation barriers you do not know. And of course, you can look up a lot in the internet, but it's always different in the market, different in the B2B business if you are really talking to the people and then you get the perfect advice from it.
And as we are asking everybody, so how has the pandemic really hit your business, and what has been your coping mechanism here due to the pandemic?
The pandemic was
Yes.
kind of a shock, especially in the international purchases. So you saw that the borders were closed and materials couldn't be shipped on time. The production was delayed as well. So we saw it with our companies. But it's a good opportunity because people try to work around it, network, virtual, find new opportunities, and that is where we decided it's now the right step to expand and to go, even if you're not traveling, but going virtual to the countries and to start making the first connections. So we try to make the best out of it, and now we see that the economy is growing again, and the purchases are going up, and working capital is even more needed than before. So yes, we're trying to make the best out of it.
Well, good to hear that. And this is very special that you work with SMEs in Germany. So for German founders or for Indian founders who are looking at working with this particular segment of SMEs, because they are different from like young startups and they are definitely different from corporates, what are the 3, 4 tips that you could give them, that how to reach out to them, how to work with them, how to acquire them as clients?
I would just say, just just get it started, and there is so much help in the SME sector. So if you're getting the first connections, they are really helpful. That is what we figured out. Even if we started to expand from just like offering German purchases to international, and we had some customers, they had experience in it, and they were always open to help and answer our questions. So that is definitely what I can give advice. There are good intermediaries here in Germany, and we experienced that they are in India as well. Even if they want to have a percentage afterwards for the advice, it's always worth to go it, because you need the first customers, you need the first referrals to start and then to increase. And yeah, networking is one of the next big steps that I can advise as well.
Yes, networking, just like Aruna said and you said.
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
So, on a concluding note, if you had to make a call or give a message to all founders who are here, or the platform ecosystem players who are attending your panel today, what would it be? Why should they reach out to you? What support you can offer them? What support you are looking for? What would you say?
Yeah, so definitely we can support any startup that are older than 1 year and need working capital. We can always talk and maybe just give some advices, because we have quite a good network in the banking system here in Europe. So just feel free to contact me. And for the Indian SMEs, it's always good to talk. Maybe we can find here our first customers.
Okay. Everybody is interested in signing their first customers, so I'm sure you'll get a lot of messages. So thank you very much for joining, Freike. It was really nice talking to you today.
And thanks again for having us.
Yeah, thank you. And with this, we go to our third startup story. We have Gaurav Johri, co-founder and CEO Doppelio. Doppelio is an IoT test automation platform which is used by enterprises to test their IoT systems without dependence on physical devices. They were also a part of Bosch Accelerator program. But I think the best person to explain the business model and what exactly Doppelio is all about is Gaurav right here. So thank you for joining us, Gaurav.
Hi, Diksha. Thank you for having us here. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, very well.
Am I audible? Yeah, right. So yeah, essentially we are a SaaS platform which, like you mentioned, enables anybody who's got a connected product or a service to be able to test the software. We're not actually depending on devices, so they can use it to simulate various scenarios and virtualize devices. Our customers have been spread globally. I mean, we started from day one. We aimed for the global market. We actually today work with about 5-6 large Fortune 500 organizations, some of the names that Aruna was mentioning. And the funny thing was we started late 2019. So you were asking people the impact of the pandemic. We were born right before the pandemic. So it's been a very interesting journey for us since then.
Okay, so what has been your, so you also pretty much started with global customers right at the beginning.
Correct.
And
Right, that's correct.
And what is your relationship with German companies, and how did you reach out to them, and how did you establish your first German customer?
So actually, our first German customer was Bosch. I mean, really all our German customer interactions, or we work with Daimler, that has all been through the India captive centers or the India technology hubs. One of our learnings also has been that, there is probably no Fortune 500 company that doesn't have an India technology hub. And pretty much all the decision making that we end up seeing, straddles the headquarter, one other global location, and India. So that sort of you keep juggling that. But that helped us a lot. I mean, with Bosch, for example, when we started working with Bosch, we had an MVP. We probably didn't have, we also didn't have a clue in the whole IoT world and the entire landscape, what would be our specific, early focus market.
Okay.
And nothing better could have happened to us than working with Bosch. I mean, Bosch does everything under the sun in IoT, and that really helped us sort of navigate through various customers within Bosch and zero in on what's going to be really working for us, and figure out connected automotive was actually the use case that was really, they wanted our platform. And that really got us sort of, going forward from there. So that's how, we got into Daimler later on. And so that's really been a bit of that journey, if you will, in the German market. For US customers, we actually have ended up going directly in many cases. And that's where our sort of interactions have sort of been.
So glad you mentioned that you didn't even have you had an MVP when you actually.
We had an MVP. We had an
Okay.
MVP. I mean, it
Okay.
was, yeah.
So what's exactly the process from when you got into the accelerator program and by the time you got out of the accelerator program, what are the kind of changes you saw and how does it help? Because I think founders are also very interested in this, as I asked Frauke as well. So if you could give an overview of that.
See, at that stage, when you have something like an MVP, what you're really looking for is an early adopter. You're looking for a customer who's saying, I don't need a finished product. I think what you have with a little bit of, tweaks here and there can solve a problem, because the problem I have is so burning and I don't have a solution for it. Now, what is interesting with Doppelio is we're building a product which is, till date, there's nothing like Doppelio in the market. So we're creating a category for ourselves. So first use case ended up being a customer like that within Bosch. They were building a tractor as a service and they needed something to test their solution and they didn't have anything. So the first 2 or 3 cases that we worked with were always these early adopter profiles where the product, they didn't care as much about the complete finished product per se, but what it can do for them. And they knew that also the fact being part of an accelerator program, you're also working a bit in a co-creation mode, it's understood. And that really also is the way Bosch engages with startups. So they're like bringing in companies which they think as they work with us will mature. So that was essentially the spirit of the program itself, which helped us navigate. Of course, the product changed dramatically. I mean, to be very honest with you, taking an MVP and becoming an enterprise grade product in less than 6 months takes a lot. I mean, and I think that was probably one of the biggest outcomes we had from that journey with Bosch. And we still actually, we're out of that acceleration program, but interestingly, Bosch continues to support us. I mean, the startup team that runs, we continue to have their support in navigating other parts of Bosch as well. So they've continued to engage with the startups they bring on board.
It's phenomenal that we are hearing this story today from you, because in the morning we also had a spokesperson from Hemant from Bosch talking about the corporate startup engagement, and you can hear the outcome right here of those initiatives.
Yeah, very much, very much. I mean, it's absolutely invaluable.
So, okay, so this is your German side of customers, but you are based in India, so I'm sure you work with Indian customers as well. So tell us really what are the major differences you see and between this clientele, and how does an Indian founder really cope with these two set of customer segments?
I see. For us, what happened is we knew very early on that we were trying to create a new category, and we knew that if we have to create a category, we need to work with the clients who are global. So till date, actually, we don't work with a single customer who is headquartered out of India. All our clients, all our prospects are actually companies based outside, but of course they have a tech hub in India. So we are sort of, navigating these two things. So we've not consciously targeted the Indian market because we want to create lighthouse customers. We want to create customers which the rest of the world will follow. And that's been the philosophy so far. So per se, I wouldn't be able to comment on how the Indian customers are, but primary reason why we went also for the global customers, not just the logo value, but also the relative maturity on the IoT journey. Because we knew that, these customers would buy into what we have to offer as a proposition. The business value was substantial to them. And obviously from a lighthouse customer perspective, they would give us much more leverage.
So I think we have a question from but with you, I think you would be the right person for this. After establishing well in India, what are the initial practical steps to enter the German market? Whom should we connect to when we are new to Germany? So
So actually, I think obviously, I mean, I'm assuming for a minute that you are unable to travel to Germany and you do not necessarily have existing network out there. I think finding a partner is important. Now, here's a tricky problem. If you're very early stage, you should not go with a partner. I think early stage, you should be directly talking to your customers. That's what we did. You've got to be scrappy about it. Find somebody somewhere who knows somebody, use LinkedIn excessively. And there's no easy answer to that. I mean, all the customers that we've landed has been through our own networks. Ask somebody who can give you an introduction to somebody. So I don't think there is a straightforward magic pill out there. But once one thing I've realized is that while we psychologically assume that customers in the US, France, Germany, UK are very different, engineers world over are very similar. Technical buyers don't change that dramatically. So your style of selling and everything may undergo small changes, but the proposition does not change what you're really trying to bring to the market. So I would encourage startups not to get too bogged down by the geography question per se. You figure out what's your target segment and make it somewhat geography neutral, because any large company is spread across countries. You're going to end up dealing with that anyway.
So you particularly are also working with the US, or at least looking at the US,
Yes,
right?
we are working with US clients. Yeah.
So what is your, I know this is a little unrelated actually to Indo-German, but sort of interesting because, you're from Bosch Accelerator Program. So you also mentioned, I think, in our earlier email interaction that US is sort of unavoidable. And I was like wanting to ask, what are your comments on that kind of diversification when you internationalize?
See, if you're operating in a category or an area which is relatively new, I don't think a German buyer says, I want to buy from people who only sold in Germany. They're looking at what the best in the world have done. By definition, 70% or 60% of the world's tech spend is in the US. So I would say any buyer anywhere in the world will see what the others are doing, which is why you see Silicon Valley companies continue to dominate, even buying decisions in Europe and elsewhere. So per se, I am sort of a proponent of the fact that if you are going to build a product which you're saying will be relevant globally, then you want to spread your effort across the largest markets in that same proportion, because a buyer in Germany will look at what their counterparts in the US have been using. If you're building a product or service which is very geography specific, let's say you require feet on the ground, there is system integration involved, then naturally it's a different ballgame. But for someone like us, which was a SaaS product, we would look for where the maximum bang for the buck for us is and where the action is, and that really ends up, you can't avoid the US in that case.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, as an early stage founder, I mean, it's sure you have a great positive story, but there are also moments when it's like just too hard at that time, and it's personally and professionally. So if we talk about your entrepreneurial journey in particular, like what have been the 2, 3 points where it was super hard and you came up with, and how did you really hack those situations?
Right. I mean, I think there have been multiple things, but I think for us, really, the pandemic was the biggest. I don't think we ever imagined what that could be. Now think about it. It's been almost 18 months, and we've not met a single customer of ours. Actually, everybody is. I know Aruna was mentioning that she doesn't believe that people can sell to corporate. We actually sold deals to corporates without ever meeting them,
Yeah.
and they continue to be our customers. Now that was a phenomenally a different learning experience. How do you go through that? How to succeed with that? We also had to, of course, given that happens, prolong the runway with whatever cash we had. But that was a big thing. Now, in terms of challenges or disappointments, as a founder, initially you're looking for validation for what you're doing. It's almost that daily journey, right?
Yeah.
Because, oh my God, that customer like me now 3 years have said no. Now, fortunately, I think, we as the entire founding team were very, very strong believers in the concept that we ourselves encountered it. And my whole lifelong career in sales has taught me that, taking no is part of the job. So I think somehow we managed to cope with it. And as things would happen, what I think helps you is go back and say, okay, what happened here? What do I do differently in the next interaction or the next sales cycle? And you'll find things will sort of start falling in place. The one other thing that I think is important, I feel, is because another challenge a startup has is you tend to spread yourself too thin. You'll find 10 different kinds of customers say, can you do this? Can you do this? I find you interesting. All along, one has to keep looking for the ideal customer profile. And as long as you can find the ideal, so first part is product market fit, and the second is the ideal customer profile. Once you've got these two things, and it's a bit hard to do, you find the cycle moves much faster. And there's a lot of literature out there, but I think I believe that, when you've gone through this, that these two are probably the most important things to nail down. Once you nail that down, things move much, much faster.
Okay. It's always interesting to hear how, every entrepreneur has a different way of hacking it. And I see a lot of positivity in your chat today while you're talking about your challenges and accepting the no's, etc. So this is a platform of Indo-German startups and other ecosystem players. And as I also asked Frauke and Aruna, what is your message or call to participants that are here today on our platform? And as a concluding message, what would you like to leave them with?
I think this is a cliche everybody uses, that there's no better time to do a startup. I think this is actually a phenomenal time to start up something. When we started out, I think we saw the problem as being this big. Today, we see the problem as this big, and we can see the growth curve potentially much, much further ahead. So I think it's a fantastic time. The world is going through tremendous, transformation with technology. Just opportunities left, right, center. Find something that can scale. Find something that is repeatable. Find that sweet spot and just go after it. And I wish everybody all the success in that. And lastly, I just want to say, make sure you think about the globe. Do not anything that we build out of India today is definitely global quality. We can conceive products, we can build them to that level, and we can take them to market. There's no handicap with being in India for anyone, actually.
Wow, thank you, Gaurav. And on Think Big, Think Global, we stop on that note. But it was great having you here and hear your positivity, energy, and story, and so many nice things about the Bosch Accelerator program as well. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Diksha. Thanks for having us. A pleasure.